Hello, welcome to our channel. Today I'm going to tell you 5 real-life stories psychographed by our beloved CHICO XAVIER. Stay with me until the end. I'm sure you'll be moved by today's video. The first psychographed letter is from Jose Divino to his mother Maria, proof that love goes beyond death. Maria was a simple mother living in Minas Gerais who lost her son Jose Divino in a tragic car accident. The young man had gone out for a ride with friends and never came back home. The pain of the loss was unbearable. Like so many other mothers, she was looking for answers. Did he suffer? Is he okay? Does he know how much he was loved? Carrying her anguish in her heart, Maria went to Uberaba, where CHICO XAVIER held public psychography sessions. Among dozens of people, CHICO began to write with speed and serenity, while Maria's eyes filled with hope. The message began with an affectionate greeting. "Mom, don't cry for me anymore. I'm alive, just in another place." The medium continued with a long letter, filled with impressive details. Jose described the exact clothes he was wearing on the day of the accident, including a t-shirt with a print that only his mother knew he had received as a gift a few days before. He mentioned the name of the driver involved in the accident, a detail that had not yet been made public. He also spoke about the perfume his mother used and how he could smell her scent when she prayed before going to sleep. He revealed that he had attended his own funeral and was moved by the tribute made by his school friends, something that really happened and that CHICO could never have known. But what touched Maria the most was the final sentence of the letter. "Mom, our sign is still the same. Every time you hear our song, I'll be there, right by your side." That sign was something intimate between mother and son. They used to listen to a specific song together in the kitchen while cooking on Sundays. It was something no one outside the family knew. When Maria heard this, she broke down in tears. There was a living proof that her son's love remained intact beyond death. Why is this story so powerful? This letter is often remembered as one of the most touching and convincing pieces of evidence of life after death, psychographed by CHICO XAVIER. The richness of detail, emotional language, and facts later confirmed by the mother made this episode studied by researchers of spirituality and even skeptics. CHICO didn't know Maria. He had never spoken to her before. Even so, he delivered a letter full of love, healing, and accuracy, and Maria left that place transformed. The pain gave way to longing with hope. The second story refers to the young man who wrote with the opposite hand, the handwriting that moved the family. During one of the many mediumistic meetings held by CHICO XAVIER in Uberaba, a rare and impactful phenomenon caught everyone's attention. Among the many psychographed messages, one stood out in people's memories because of the way it was written and the deep meaning it carried. That night, a family who had lost their son in a tragic accident was seeking comfort. The young man, known for being very affectionate, was left-handed, always writing with his left hand. It was something very characteristic of him, even a source of jokes within the family. When CHICO began to psychograph the message, something unusual happened. He, who was right-handed, switched hands and began writing with his left. The movements were slower, almost as if he were relearning how to use that hand. But what was revealed was even more surprising. The letter had handwriting identical to the young man's. When the family read it, they immediately recognized the letter style, the crooked way of writing R, S, and SS, and even a habit of using too many exclamation points, his trademark. Loving expressions and nicknames he used with his parents, like Mainha and Paizo, which no one outside home ever heard. A direct reference to a note left on the mirror days before he died, in which he wrote, "I'll be home late today, but I love you." This note was kept by the mother like a relic and was completely unknown to the public. The message also said, "Mom, remember when I used to try to convince you that being left-handed was a sign of intelligence?" An inside joke between them, which brought both laughter and tears to those present. At the end of the letter, the young man wrote, "I came back with the same hand, so you be sure it was me." And that phrase struck a deep chord in everyone. It was as if he knew exactly what his mother needed to believe. Beautiful words weren't enough. She needed to feel it was her son speaking. Why does this story move us so much? This psychography stands out not only for the emotion of the content, but for the physical evidence it represents. CHICO writing with the opposite hand to show fidelity to the communicating spirit. The phenomenon, studied by spiritist researchers and scientists, defies any simple rational explanation. The mother left that meeting in tears, but with a light heart. The confirmation that her son remained alive in spirit, still with his personality, his ways, and his love, was the relief she had long sought. The third psychography tells the story of the message from the son who drowned, the current that carried the body, but not the love. Dona Elza was a mother living in the countryside of Goiás, used to a simple life, the woods, and the river that ran through the town where her son liked to swim with his friends. One day, the unexpected happened. Her 17-year-old son disappeared in the water, swept away by the current during a dive. The body was only found 2 days later. The pain was deep. Elza sank into a sad, constant silence. She blamed herself, wondering if she could have prevented the tragedy, and felt that her son had died scared, alone, and afraid. The lack of answers consumed her. Years later, she heard about CHICO XAVIER and decided to go to Uberaba in search of a light. Without having scheduled anything, she went with faith and a photo of her son in hand. During the session, Chico began to write quickly. When he finished the letter and read the young man's name, Elza could barely stand. The content of the message was so intimate, so full of details, there was no doubt it was her boy speaking to her. In the letter, the young man said that he was fine, welcomed by 2 men in white who pulled him from the water, a detail Elza interpreted as spiritual rescuers who helped him right after passing. He described a river, mentioning the nearby farm by name, the smell of the woods, and even the name of the dog that always followed him on the trails, Treveo. He cited the exact number of friends who were with him on the day of the accident, and a phrase he shouted moments before going under, "I'm going to try to cross in one go." A phrase confirmed by one of the friends present and never publicly disclosed. He asked his mother not to blame herself, saying, "Mom, no one is to blame when the time comes." The water only did what time had already written. But the most moving moment came at the end when he wrote, "I still come to visit you every time the wind moves the curtains in your room." Elza cried like never before, but this time was a cry of release, reconnection, and peace. Why does this story move us so deeply? The psychographed letter not only comforted a desperate mother, but also brought information that only those present at the drowning site knew. CHICO XAVIER had never met Elza, had never spoken with the young man's friends, nor even knew about the accident. The accuracy of the details, combined with the sensitivity of the message and the affectionate language of the son, made this psychography one of the most impactful of its time. Many who were present that night said that the silence during the reading was full of emotion. Everyone felt that something greater was happening there. Dona Elza returned home transformed, and she began to tell the story with faith, saying, "Death didn't take my son. It only changed the way I hear him." Fourth story, the reunion of the truck driver father with his son, the letter that rebuilt a bridge broken by distance. Geraldo had been a truck driver for over 20 years. He traveled all over Brazil carrying heavy loads and an even heavier burden in his heart, the guilt of having distanced himself from his son. After a difficult separation, he couldn't maintain regular contact with the boy. By the time he realized it, more than 4 years had passed without speaking to him. He always told himself that one day he would make things right. But fate didn't wait. His son, Caio, died tragically in a motorcycle accident at the age of 19. The news hit like a punch. Geraldo broke down. Regret consumed him. He spent sleepless nights replaying missed birthdays, hugs not given, and "I love you" stuck in his throat. Desperate for a sign, he traveled to Uberaba to try to receive a message through CHICO XAVIER. He wasn't sure if he deserved it, but he went. He brought only a crumpled photo of his son in his wallet and unbearable pain in his soul. During the session, CHICO XAVIER began to write with a deeply serene expression. The letter was addressed to a father with a hardened heart who now cries inside. Geraldo knew it was for him. In the message, Caio said, "Dad, I understood your silence. I forgive you and I'll be waiting." He described how he used to collect newspaper clippings of trucks, saying he wanted to be just like his father when he grew up, something Geraldo had never told anyone. He talked about a gift the father had left for the mother years earlier, a steel keychain with the name CHICO engraved on it, which he always carried in his backpack, a detail only the two of them knew. He mentioned a day when his father passed by the city where he lived and stopped a truck near the school to try to see him from afar, a fact Geraldo had never told anyone. But the young man said he had seen him from the classroom window. The most emotional moment of the letter was when the spirit wrote, "Life separated us, so that love could be rebuilt in silence. But the reunion is certain. We're connected by blood, but even more by what was left unsaid." Geraldo cried silently, with trembling hands, as he heard every word. That night, an invisible bridge was rebuilt between father and son, not along Brazil's highways, but through the highways of the spirit. Why is this story so moving? This case became known among those who followed CHICO XAVIER because it dealt with something very common and very human. The guilt of absence, love that wasn't expressed in time, late forgiveness. But it also showed that the spirit has a higher understanding of human limitations. The accuracy of the details, the specific memories, and the message of forgiveness without judgment touched everyone. It was one of those psychographies where no one needed to be convinced. Love spoke for itself. After that day, Geraldo changed completely. He started visiting spiritist centers, adopted prayer as a habit, and in his own words. Now, every truck I see on the road feels like my son saying, "I'm with you, Dad." And finally, our fifth psychograph letter, the letter from the student who asked for forgiveness, a soul in search of pardon and understanding. Luciana was a mother of Arthur, a young engineering student who was always seen as promising, intelligent, and calm. But what no one knew was the invisible weight he carried. Pressure to be perfect, fear of failure, and a silent sadness he hid behind smiles. At 22 years old, Arthur took his own life in his room. The family was in shock. There was no note, no sign, just a suffocating emptiness and a million unanswered questions. Luciana felt defeated. Where did I go wrong? Why didn't he say anything? Is he at peace? Overcome by grief and driven by a fragile hope, she decided to seek an answer through CHICO XAVIER. She arrived in Uberaba not knowing if she would receive a message, but brought a photo of her son and a prayer in her heart. That night, during the mediumistic session, Chico began to write slowly, with an emotional expression. The letter began with a sentence that chilled Luciana to the bone. "Mom, I was ashamed to show my pain. That's why I hid it from everyone, including you." The message continued with deep details. Arthur spoke about the pressure he felt at the university, the piled-up assignments, the constant fear of disappointing his parents, and the existential emptiness that consumed him inside. He described the exact position of his desk and how he organized his books, and even mentioned the name of a professor he had argued with days before the event. He mentioned the blue notebook where he used to write phrases that inspired him, which his mother would only find months later, hidden at the back of a drawer. When Luciana returned home, she found the notebook. The first phrase written there was, "If only I could rest a little without guilt." Arthur also apologized to his father for not being as strong as him, and to his younger sister for not saying goodbye. He said, "I ask that she doesn't feel abandoned. I'm still following her every step." The letter ended with a touching plea. "Mom, help me forgive myself. Only with your forgiveness can I start over." Luciana, through tears, held the letter tightly to her chest. It was as if she had spoken to her son one more time, not to judge him, but to welcome him with the unconditional love only a mother has. Why is this story so necessary? This psychography is one of the most impactful among the many CHICO XAVIER received from young people who committed suicide. It not only offered comfort to the mother, but brought a deeply human spiritual perspective on invisible emotional suffering. It showed that Arthur's spirit was not condemned but welcomed, and that spiritual healing also involves the forgiveness of those who remain. It's a call to empathy, to active listening, to seeing beyond appearances. Many parents and young people who heard this story began to view mental health with more compassion and depth. And Luciana, after that day, began visiting support centers for grieving mothers, always saying, "My son didn't leave, he just asked for a new chance somewhere else." If you liked today's video, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. and hit the bell so YouTube sends you notifications whenever I post new content here. See you soon. Gratitude.